Hi, this is Derek with Tater Tot Academy. We're going to be working on Chapter 3 in the Green Book. This is our test review for Algebraic Expressions. Let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to start with write 1/4 a plus 3 as a bar model. So we're going to be learning how to work with bar models. All I want to do is draw a bar. We're going to label this whole thing as A, because this whole bar is going to be represented with A. If I want 1/4 of that, I can just split this up into 4 pieces. Part of what we've been working on is how to split things by looking at them, to put them into halves, thirds, fourths, fifths. From there you can even go to sixths and eighths. Sevenths is a little tricky, but we've taught them tricks on how to get to that. We can also do tenths. Let's go ahead and start with fourths. So we'll just cut it in half, and then cut each half in half. And now we've got A split into 4 pieces. We'll color in one of these parts. So that one part, and we'll put a little thing there, is 1/4 of an A. But it says plus 3. So all I'm going to do is go down to the end, put a plus in a bar. We're going to say this whole bar is equal to 3. And we have all of this. So this here in this drawing represents 1/4 A plus 3. Let's go ahead and try to use this in other ways. We have 1/2 x minus 1/4 of an x. So let's go ahead and draw 1/2 of an x. I'm going to go ahead and draw this whole thing. And we're going to call this whole thing x, like we just did. At first, I'm working with 1/2 of an x. So I have 1/2 of an x. I'll split this up into 1/2. And this here is my 1/2. I have this much. And what it's saying is I'm taking away 1/4 of an x. So I want to go ahead. Let me label again. Sorry, let me back up. I'm going to label this whole thing here is now 1/2 of an x. But I need to get rid of 1/4 of an x. To see 1/4 of an x, I need to split my bar, my x, up into 4 pieces. So if I see I already have a half, if I split a half into a half, I will have fourths. And I'm losing 1/4. So I'm going to have this as 1/4 of an x right here. And I'm losing it. So the only thing that I have left is this section here, which is 1/4 x. My final answer, 1/4 x. Let's go ahead and move to our next one. We have 2/3 of a b minus 1/4 of a b. So now we get a little trickier. I'm going to make this quite a bit larger, just so that we can really see what we're working with here. And I have this whole thing is equivalent to b. Well, I'm starting with thirds. I have 2/3 of a b. So I'm going to take a look at this, try to put it as close as I can into thirds. So I'll split this thing up into thirds. And I have 2/3 of that. So let's go with the color and color myself in. 1/3, 2/3 of a b. But I'm subtracting 1/4. Well, this is going to be kind of tricky. I'm going to have to say, hey, I got to turn this in to make sense into fourths. I'm going to look for the common factor of, or the least common denominator out of thirds and fourths, and I know that is twelfths. So I'm going to split this up into twelfths. I already have thirds. If I take thirds and split them into fourths, I will have twelfths. So I'll take each third and go in a half, in a half. I'll take my next third, and I'll go in half, and then in half. I'll take my last third and do the same thing one last time and go in half, and each one in half. Now I have 12 pieces. If I'm dealing with 1/4, I want to know what that is as a 12th. As a 12th, 1/4, I should be able to multiply by this by 3, so I should have 3/12ths. So I'm going to take away 3 of these 12ths. Let's X them out. 1 of those that I had, 2 of those that I had, and 3 of those that I had. Let's go ahead and look at what is left now. When I look at what's left, this section here, I know that each one of these is 1/12 of a b. So I'll count them up. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 twelfths. 5/12 b would be my final answer. 4x plus 3y minus x minus 2y. So I want to draw 4 x's. Here I go, and I will split this up into pieces here to give me, that's 4x. Okay, so I have 4 x's. And I also have, I'll put plus, I have 3 y's. And this whole thing represents 3 y's. So that means each one of these is a y, and each one of these is an x. So there's my 4x plus my 3y. Now I have a negative x. So I need to get rid of, I have lost an x. Well, when I color in my 4x's, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 x's. Well, I just lost an x. So that means that I've lost it. It is gone. So when I look at this now, I have 3 x's left. Over here, I started with my 3 y's. 1, 2, 3 y's. This tells me that I lost 2 y's. So I'll go ahead and x out 1, 2 y's, and all that is left is this guy here, which is y. My final answer is 3x plus y. Now I also want to be able to group this when I look at it. And I'm going to see, hey, I have a 4x and a negative x. And then I have a positive 3y and a negative 2y. Okay, so let's go ahead and work through this. And all we have to do is look at our like terms. We are combining like terms when we wrote this. So 4x minus x becomes 3x. And a positive 3y and a negative 2y turns out to be plus y. So we can also see that we can group these in those ways. And that's all we really did in our pictures. We drew 4x's and we took 1 away. Same thing as right here. We have 4x's and we took 1 away. Then we drew 3 y's and we took 2 away. So we ended up with 3x plus y. Okay, next one, it says I have 1/2 of 2x plus 4. Of is times, as we've learned a whole bunch of times, that this is distributive property because I have 1/2 of 2x and 4. If I look at this and I draw 2 x's, this whole thing is 2x. So that means each one of these is an x, and I have both of those. But I also have 4 things over here. So I'll split it in half, split it in half, split it in half, and I have 4. And it says I have half of that now. So I'm going to split each one of these things in half. I'm going to find my half point. And I will have an x left if I want half. I want half of 4. Split it down the middle. I should have 2. So when I look at this, I have x plus 2. I can also do this using distributive property. So I'll go 1/2 times 2x. 1/2 times 2x should be x. And 1/2 times 4, we should see that as plus 2. Both ways, we end up with the same answer. We want to see it in pictures, and we want to see it in distributive property. If we can do it both ways, it makes life a lot easier. The pictures will come in handy as we get into the bigger, harder questions. We're doing the same thing we just did, but now I say 1/4 of 8x plus 12. 1/4 of 8x plus 12. I can also say this is distributive property of 1/4 times the sum of 8x plus 12. I can also say that I am splitting 8x plus 12 into 4 groups, because I would be dividing by 4. Let's go ahead and see how this works, though. So I have an 8x. Let's go ahead and split that half, half, and then halves. Now you see we have 8 pieces, so that is my 8x. Each one of these is worth x. I also am adding on 12. 12, we've done 12 already. We want to split it up into fourths or into thirds. I can do it either way. This is going to be kind of hard, but I'll split it up into fourths. I'll split each fourth up into thirds. And I know that this whole thing is worth 12. And now I have 8x plus 12, and I know each one of these is worth 1. As I continue to look at this, I am splitting it up into 4 groups. I'm multiplying it by 1/4. I'm taking 1/4 of 8. So if I look at this, I want to find a way to split this up into 4 pieces. 1, 2, lost my board for a sec. There we go. And I split that up into 4 equal pieces. When I do, I see that I have 2 x's left. Over here, I'm splitting 12 up into 4 pieces. I want to think of how to split this up into 4. When I look at this, I'll split it in half. That'll be my 6. Split my 6's in half. So if I'm taking 1/4 of this, I end up with 3, or 2x plus 3. When I go up here and use distributive property, I'll rewrite it down here so we can see it a little easier. 1/4 times 8x plus 12. I'll use distributive property and go 1/4 of 8x, or 1/4 times 8x, which is 2x. Then I'll go 1/4 times 12. 12 divided by 4, that would be 3, so plus 3. And I'd have my same answer both ways. Sometimes the long way seems a little harder. In some situations it is, as we're learning, we're trying to see the visuals behind everything that we're doing. Also in some of the more in-depth problems we'll get to, the story problems, it can make life a little easier. Okay, let's look at this. This says a negative, so I have negative groups of negative 4k, negative 0.4k, plus 3.3. So I can say that negative is I'm losing a group. I have these things, but I'm having to get rid of 4k's. Okay, so let's see this. If I have negative this, I'm going to do this one just as a distributive property problem, and we're going to look. I'm going to rewrite this, because the negative there would mean the same as negative 1 times negative 0.4k plus 3.3. I can pretend that I am multiplying a negative 1 by this whole unit. When I do this out, I'm going to see that I've actually, if I have negative 1 groups of this, it means I'm doing the opposite. So I've lost my negative 0.4. And it seems kind of weird to have the double negative. This is just like when I multiply negatives, and we've learned that when I multiply a negative by a negative, I have a positive. So that means I would have 0.4k. It is no longer negative. I now have a positive. I've gained 0.4k's. But I have lost 3.3. So we got to make sure we do the distributive property on both sides. So that becomes positive 0.4k and a negative 3.3. Negative 7m. This is I am losing 7 groups of 3m minus 4. So I'm losing 7 groups. Once again, I can go ahead and look at this as distributive property. And negative 7 times 3m is negative 21m. I'm going to go negative 7 times negative 4. Negative times a negative is a positive. So I have a positive 28. On to our next style. I'm going to be factoring. When I say factoring, that means I want to make as many equal groups as possible. So I'm going to say I have 3 A's. A, and A. As A plus A would be 3A. Plus I have 6 B's. So I have plus a B, plus a B, plus a B, plus a B. We got a whole bunch of these bad boys out here. And we're good. And we have 6 B's. So we have 3 A's and 6 B's. My goal now is to see how many equal groups I can make. So now I want to see how many people I can share this with. That's what when I'm factoring, I'm just seeing how many I can share with. I want everyone to have the same amount. I want to share into equal groups. Well, 3A and 6B is already equal, but then I have one group of that. If I tried to make 2 groups, well, I couldn't split 3A's into 2 equal groups. That wouldn't work, because I'd have part of it to give to people. I want to give full A's to people. I could split this up into 3 groups. If I put A's into 3 groups, I'd have an A in each group, an A in each group, and an A in each group. Well, if I did 3 groups for these B's, I have 6 of them. I could give plus B plus B, plus B plus B, plus B plus B. So let's see, I have 3 groups now. I have 3 groups of an A in 2 B's. That'd be my final answer. If you notice, what I'm really looking for is the greatest common factor of 3 and 6. In this case, it was 3. I divide each one of these numbers by 3. If I divide 3A by 3, I'm left with an A. If I divide 6B by 3, I'm left with 2B. So this is where I get my 3 groups of A plus 2B. We're going to do the same thing with factor 12D plus 6A minus 18. For the things I want to split these up into as many equal groups as possible. So I have 12 D's, I have 6 E's, and then I have negative 18. If we use that common factor trick that we just said, we're trying to put these into as many groups as possible. Common factor of 12, 6, and 18 would be 6. Meaning I can make 6 groups. If I do make 6 groups, and I had 12 D's, then each one would get 2 D's. If I made 6 groups out of 6 E's, each would get an E. And if I had negative 18 into 6 groups, each one would get negative 3. Or I have 6 groups of 2D and an E and a negative 3. I'll continue this on the next installment here in just a second. We'll get you into some word problems. Thank you so much.